This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
So you are about to pull together a team of 8 to 12 people into a brainstorming session. Your boss has come to you and said, hurry up, let's get a group of people together to come up with some new ideas. Do not, and I repeat, do not pull the same mistake that 90% of all brainstorms suffer from. What is that problem? There's no area of focus defined. Most teams will be given the challenge of, quote, quick, come up with a new product idea. The results can be predicted. The prediction is poor to none when it comes to creating any form of disruptive ideas. In fact, I can correlate the quality of the ideas directly to this challenge that is given. How can you hope to create great ideas when your total challenge is defined as quick, come up with a new product idea? So that is what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to share with you the 4 steps to creating a problem statement. And the problem statement directly correlates to the value of your brainstorm. When we pull together a team for a brainstorm, creating focus is absolutely critical. Focus being the F in FIRE. Focus, ideation, ranking, and execution. We're going to focus on focus today. And what do I mean by creating focus? You need to be able to communicate to the brainstorming team, the team that you're going to put together to drive and create ideas, or ideation as we call it. You need to be able to tell them who has the problem, what exactly is the problem, and why is it important to solve. Who has the problem, what exactly is the problem, and why is it important to solve. Now, in a full day or a multi-day brainstorming sessions that I facilitate and host, I have the teams develop their own problem statement. It's actually part of the process of kind of getting mentally ready to try to derive ideas to solve the problem. But first, you have to identify what the problem is. Now, when I'm doing either a full day or a multi-day brainstorm, I will set aside between 4 to 8 hours to create a problem statement. Now, for the session that's going to last maybe 60 to 90 minutes, then I'll work on it ahead of time and have it ready to go. But I find that I spend the same 4 to 8 hours creating the problem statement. Now, I know some of you are sitting back going, are you crazy? 4 to 8 hours? I know what the problem is. I can write the sentence out now. If you do that, I would argue that the quality of that problem statement is 1, probably not that high. 2, you've probably not validated because you assume you can act as a proxy for whoever's having the problem. Even if you are a user, never use yourself as that proxy. So why does it take so much time? Well, I'm reminded of the Albert Einstein quote. Quote, if I had only 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes finding the solution. So if Albert Einstein is given an hour to solve a problem, he dedicates 55 minutes to defining the problem, and then 5 minutes solving it. The better you at describing, defining, communicating the problem, the better the outcome will be, the better the ideas you will have. Do not scrimp on this. I've tried to cheat over the years where I've hurried up putting together a brainstorming team and really didn't dedicate the time and thought I could come up with a problem statement pretty easily. And I can tell you that 100% of the time, They were total and utter failures. A well-defined focus via a well-thought-out problem statement will generate significantly more and radically better ideas when you are ideating, when you put together the team to come up with the ideas to solve the problem. Now, the core elements, you have to address one of the following. The problem either has to solve a problem, it has to remove a barrier of some kind, or improve an experience. Anything else outside of that, then you're not talking about a problem statement. It needs to solve a problem, remove a barrier, and or improve an experience. Now, there are some basic elements of a problem statement. The first is who. Who is the target customer segment? Who is it that has this problem? Now, there's multiple ways you can look at who. You can look at who as individual. You can try to aggregate them up into some kind of a customer segment. I'll caution you to be careful that if you try to roll it up into too broad of a customer segment, that you will lose visibility and granularity to understand the problem. So, for instance, do you target a problem for people that are over 55, who own their home, who are pre-retirement, who have no kids at home but have grandkids? That is a very specific definition of a who. Or do you say, I'm going to target all boomers, everybody that's more than 55 years old? Two completely different. They are not equivalent, right? So be careful on understanding who has the problem. Who is that target that you're going to go after? The second is the what. What is the problem, the barrier, the experience you're trying to create? What is it? What's the problem you're trying to solve? And you need to be as specific and as granular, again, as you can be. And then the third element is why. Why is it important to solve it? Why is this such a big deal? Are we trying to solve a problem for one person or one little edge case of a problem? What's the value or the benefit to the problem? Now, this may sound easy. Okay, I define the who, I define the what, I define the why. But while you're trying to answer all of these, remember you need to be concise. It has to be something that everybody in the brainstorm can keep in their head. It doesn't state or imply a solution. You are just defining the problem. The example I always give is John F. Kennedy when he put out the problem statement or the challenge statement to put a man on the moon. And he stated that before the end of the decade, we will put a man on the moon and return them home safely. And that was it. That was the total statement. He did not say we're going to put a man on the moon and bring them home safely. We're going to use a 3-stage rocket. We're going to use a slingshot effect using Earth's gravity to propel the rocket to... No, he didn't define the solution as part of the problem. He stated the challenge and then later let them brainstorm and ideate on possible ways. What are all different ways you can get a person to the moon? How are you going to bring them home safely? You can't have all that fuel. How do you use the gravity to make that happen? He did not state the solution. He stated the problem, the challenge, and he let the solutions come later. So you need to be concise, and you do not want to state or imply a solution. You want to be specific enough to be solvable in the given time frame and with available resources or competencies. Just as President Kennedy said, before the end of the decade, that kind of time boxed it. You couldn't wait for time travel to ever be invented or transporter technology. You had to use it within the constraint so that you could do it before the end of the decade. Now, wow, this sounds hard, doesn't it? You got to try to create a problem statement that describes the who, what, why, and you're going to be concise, not define the solution, etc. That's why I dedicate 4 to 8 hours crafting these. Bertrand Russell said it best: the greatest challenge to any thinking and thinker is stating the problem in a way that will allow a solution. So remember, you get back what you put into it. Do not scrimp on spending the time to craft a proper problem statement, because the time you spend on that dictates the quality of your brainstorm. In the next segment, I'll share both good and bad problem statements and share with you a template I use when creating them. And we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. We're discussing the 4 steps to creating better brainstorm problem statements, and this correlation between the quality of defining the problem statement up front. This is the statement you would give to your brainstorming team, and in turn, what they return back to you as far as the quality of the ideas, both the quantity and the quality of the ideas. So, quality of the problem statement directly correlates to the quality of the problem statement. If you give them a crappy problem statement and they deliver poor results, do not blame your brainstorming team, blame yourself. Now, I have a few different templates I use for creating problem statements. I'm going to give you 2 here right now. First of all, we would start the sentence with maybe the what, the problem statement affects who, the customer, the result of which, why is it important? So the problem affects customer, the results of which, why is this important? Pretty simple structure. Flip side, just to vary it up, sometimes we'll say who, the customer, is affected by what, the problem statement, the result of which is, why is it important? So who, customer, is affected by the what problem, the result of which is why importance. So problem first, customer middle, importance last, or you could put the customer first, problem in the middle, why it's important at the end. Now here are some example problem statements that we actually use in the 4-day innovation bootcamp, where we spend literally half a day on the problem statement. And this is just a purely made up hypothetical example. Middletown's hospital's current diagnosis protocol and tools are resulting in low diagnostic effectiveness and efficiency, causing up to 40% of its critical care patients painful extended treatment periods while substantially reducing the hospital's earning potential and resource efficiency. That's long, hard to read, given I stumbled. I couldn't even say the word diagnosis, right? Probably could be made more concise, hard to grasp. There's just a lot going on in that problem statement. So here's a better version of that same problem statement. Middletown's hospital's current diagnosis protocol and tools are resulting in low diagnosis effectiveness and efficiency, substantially reducing the hospital's earning potential and resource efficiency. So we talked about the who, right? The diagnosis problem, right? And the value, reducing earning potential or resource efficiency. So that's a good one. Here's another one, variation of the same one. Up to 40% of critical care patients are experiencing painful, extended treatment periods due to low diagnosis efficiencies and effectiveness of current diagnosis protocols and tools. Did you notice the subtlety between the last two? The last one, where it started off with Middleton Hospitals, they were the who, right? So it's all about protocols and tools to improve earning potential and resource efficiency. In the second problem statement, who's the who? It's the critical care patient. Different who's, right? So it's how you get specific. And in this case, this was critical. Because if you're not clear on the who is, how do you expect people to generate ideas? So who do you think the who should be? Should it be the hospital or the patient? There's no right or wrong answer to this, right? But you've got to think about those things in creating the problem statement. So again, the templates are the what, the problem, affects who, the customer, the result of which is why, what's the importance. Or another template being who, the customer, is affected by what, the problem, the result of which is why is it important. Okay? So, what are the steps that would allow you to create a well-defined problem statement? Step number 1, brainstorm the problem, of course, especially if you're running a full or multi-day brainstorming activity. Ask for people to list problems, challenges, friction in the system, barriers, unmet needs. Now remember, you're focusing on the problem. No solutions, just problems and challenges. Now I know this is hard. Everybody wants to jump in and come up with answers. Just focus on the problem. Everybody, this is a constant problem when we do this. List one per sticky, one problem, one challenge, one friction. Share them on a flip chart. Group the common stickies. Name the group. Now, what do the groups tell you? Is there a common set of problems or challenges? Vote, rank, however you want to select the ones that you think are the biggest problem areas. Step 2, have each individual answer the who, what, and why we talked about earlier in the show. Who is the target customer segment? The what is the problem or barrier experience? And the why. Why is it important to solve? What's the value of the benefit? So answer the questions. Who do you think the problem is the beneficiary? What is that problem or experience? And why is it important? And you may come up with multiple versions. That's fine. Then take the answers and start to draft problem statements using the templates. So just take the templates and start answering and coming up with and drafting a variety of different problem statements using the templates. And remember, you need to be concise. Don't state or imply a solution. You're not in the solution phase yet. You're not into ideating. You're just trying to get the problem statement. You're trying to truly understand the problem. And then 3, specific enough to be solvable in the given time frame with the available resources or competencies. And then repeat the who, what, and why, drafting multiple versions of the problem statement. Now you're at a point where maybe you have 3, 4, 5 problem statements that you and your team have agreed on. How do you know which one is the right one? Well, you need to go test it. And that's step number 4. You need to go out and find the who, the target segment. Now, there's a variety of different ways you can do this. If it's something that's already targeting an existing customer base, easy to find. If you're going to go out and try to find somebody totally a new segment, somebody that is not part of somebody you serve already, then you need to go find them. You need to go find them where they hang out at. And you need to be sometimes a little bold. We will actually do dinners where we invite people and we just invite them off of Craigslist and we sit down and interview them over dinner. They get a free meal out of it. We give them a gift card at Starbucks, whatever, maybe a Visa cash card for $25 or $50, right? Find them any way you can. And all you're doing is you're asking for ideas. You want to validate that what you think is the problem, right? Is this the right segment? Here's the hypothesis of the problem. And do they agree that that is the problem? Now, when we come back, I'm going to talk more about the problem statement, but more specifically, we're going to walk through in detail how do you validate in this testing process, what can you do to make sure that the idea is real? You're listening to Killer Innovations and Biz Talk Radio Network. Once you have a version of the problem statement that you think works, you need to test it with others. Why? Never, ever, ever use yourself as a proxy. You are too close to it. You're spending time thinking about this problem. You probably in your head have already jumped to some of the solution answers. So you may try to actually manipulate the problem statement to match this really great idea you got running around in your head. Distance yourself. Never, ever use yourself as the proxy. So how do you test it? One is write it out, edit it, simplify it, make it tight, and make it concise. Then find and talk to people who you believe have the problem. This most likely will require you to get your butt up out of your chair and go find them. In my previous life, I would actually go and hang out at Best Buy stores. People were buying consumer electronics devices, laptops and printers. Now, yes, I was a user of laptops. I bought laptops. In fact, all the years I was CTO at HP, I never took advantage of my role in order to get laptops for my family. I made my family, each individual in my family, go experience the shopping experience and pay retail. It's going to Circuit City or Best Buy to go buy the product because I was a bad proxy. I wanted to hear about their experience, how the sales rep treated them, what did the sales rep emphasize as part of a feature set that convinced them to buy. Do the same. Remove yourself of being the proxy and get out there and talk to people. Read them the problem statement. Just stand there and say, I think I've got a problem, and I think, people like you are having this problem, and if I could solve that problem, it would be it'd be valuable to you because I would, give you back more time or whatever the problem is, reduce your frustration, whatever it is. Read them the problem statement, and then what I do is I'll actually then hand them, I print it out on like really big index cards, and I'll hand them their card and have them to read it themselves. Then ask them a set of questions to validate the problem statement. Now you can change these questions around. These are just the questions I use. One is this team's hypothesis, the way we define the problem, is that a problem for you? Why or why not? I think you have this problem, blah, 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 blah. Am I right? Do you agree with it? Why or why not? Second question. What problem would be solved for you if the problem I've defined was fixed or corrected? Meaning, if I solve this, what is the pain or discomfort or issues that this problem causes? Do I solve your lack of time or, not enough disposable income or, whatever it is? Third question, how frequently does this problem cause a problem for you? Is this a once every 3-year thing when you've got to refresh a piece of electronics, where you've got to be short on cash or save up in order to know that you're going to have to buy a new laptop for your kid going to college or buy a new cell phone? How frequently does this issue cause a problem for you? And then the fourth question, what value would you gain if this problem is solved? What would be your big wish if I get a magic wand and I could solve it? Now, after you've gone through that process of talking to them, then you want to edit or adjust the problem statement based on what you heard. But now that you have a problem statement, what do you do with it? You got it nice written out, it's nice and tight, it's clear, you validated it. I would recommend sharing it with the team for the brainstorm as homework. Send it out to everybody that's on the team 2 weeks, a month ahead of the brainstorm. Have them think about the problem statement and then ask them to answer the validation questions from the perspective of the individuals who would receive the benefit. Have them put themselves in the shoes of the person that you're trying to solve the problem for. In some cases, at the beginning of the brainstorm, I'll share and discuss the problem statement, and then I'll ask each of the team members who are part of the brainstorm to share their thoughts or answers to the validation questions regarding the problem statement. Now, in some cases, they may come back and tell you that this part of the problem statement wasn't quite clear, etc. Be willing to adjust that problem statement. I just did a workshop 2 weeks ago in Washington, D.C. with a major military branch, worked out a problem statement with the generals. When I got it in front of the team, they actually came back with some really good suggestions. So what did we do? We modified the problem statement before we went into ideation. So be willing. Don't think you're cast in titanium. You can be flexible, and you can change it. Now, in other cases, we review the problem statement and jump directly into both individual and then group ideation. Whatever works for you, depending on your team, how much time you have, what you're trying to achieve, etc. Now, I cannot underemphasize the importance of committing the time and getting the problem statements right. Now, indulge me. I'm going to repeat the Albert Einstein quote I shared with you earlier in the show. Quote, "If I had only 1 hour to save the world, I would spend 55 minutes defining the problem and only 5 minutes finding the solution." End of quote. Do not scrimp on this. Spend the time. Yes, I know. I'm sounding like a broken record. A well-defined focus via a well-thought-out problem statement will generate more and radically better ideas when you are ideating. So let's review the 4 steps to creating a better problem statement for your next brainstorm. Step 1, brainstorm the problem, not the solution. You're brainstorming the problem. The list of all the barriers, all the challenges you come up with, all the frictions, etc. Brainstorm the problem. List them all out. Group the common ones up. Derive what is that telling you about the problems that the users are facing. Step 2, have each individual on the team that you're working with to come up with the problem statement answer the who has the problem, what is the problem, and why should I solve it? The who, what, and why. Step number 3, draft problem statements using the templates. Take advantage of the templates and come up with a variety of different ones and then refine them, simplify them, throw out unnecessary words, make it nice and crisp and clear. And then step number 4, test it with the who. Who are you trying to solve the problem for? Test your problem statement. Doesn't make any sense to go off and ideate if you don't even know if you got the problem defined correctly. So test the problem statement. So 4 steps, pretty simple. Now, I will tell you, though, that one show is not enough time to cover everything about problem statements. We literally spend 4 hours on it when we're doing the 4-day boot camp. We teach the entire process as part of the 1 day. If you want your team to learn how to run radically better brainstorms by writing better problem statements, then I would suggest you host a 1-day disruptive ideation workshop, teaching your team how to think about better problem statements, how to run better brainstorms, how to ideate, how to do rankings. You can find out more over at disruptiveideation.com. That's disruptiveideation.com. I'll include a link in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. But I would encourage you that, 1, you can immediately apply this. 2, share this podcast with the rest of your team so they understand the process if you want. Or 3, the option would be host a 1-day training. If you're serious about innovation within your organization, what are you investing in training, coaching, and mentoring of your teams to be better innovators? It's not going to come naturally just based on inherent ability. Everybody can innovate, but in many cases, they need to be shown the tools, the approaches, how to think, how to pull it all together, how to facilitate, how to get the most out of all of your team members to generate more and better ideas. So again, check it out, disruptiveideation.com. It'll give you a lot of information about the workshop. And I've done a couple shows here recently on some of the workshops that I've taught here recently to help people. In fact, previous show actually walked you through the agenda of this workshop so that you can actually construct your own, or if you want, you can go over to disruptiveideation.com, check it out, and actually have a 1-day workshop facilitated with you, and then you can carry on and teach the rest of your organization. So when we come back from the break, we have a new segment of 5 minutes to new ideas. You are not going to want to miss that, so don't go anywhere. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Back in the early days of this show, I would share what I called a killer question in each episode. These questions were designed to be used in your personal, team, or organization's innovation efforts. Now, based on feedback from listeners just like you, we've decided to bring it back with some improvements. Each episode of the Killer Innovations has a segment that I'm now calling 5 Minutes to New Ideas. It's designed for the creative mind looking for that next great idea. Each episode will challenge you to think differently about yourself, your business, and your products and services by asking unique, funny, and sometimes crazy questions. These questions are designed to force you to look beyond the obvious and to uncover ideas and opportunities you never before considered. So, get out your notebook and be ready to uncover that game-changing idea. Here is 5 Minutes to New Ideas. As a result of some digital spring cleaning I was doing, I found and was listening to old shows from 2005, the first year of my podcast. Honestly, given what I know now, I wish I could have rewritten and re-recorded them. The technology and tools now available to podcast are far superior to what we had back in those days. This got me thinking about how wonderful innovation is and how easy it is for us to overlook it. 50 years ago, we lived in a way that would be considered a burden today. When we catch a glimpse of those days on old movies and old TV shows, we laugh and shake our heads. We used to think the cars from back then were great, not to mention the clothes. This looking back reminds us that past routines, past way of doing things are exactly that, the past. There is a better way to do almost everything. We must remind ourselves that a thing that has never been done before doesn't mean it can never be done at all. I can remember when I was a kid before central air conditioning was considered normal. During the hot, humid summers in Chicago, the only way to cool the house was with a small window air conditioner in the kitchen. This then dictated that everyone in the family slept on the tile floor in the kitchen in order to get some relief. Many a night, the 5 of us, my parents, my brother, and my grandmother all crowded into the kitchen or in the doorway trying to catch some cool air so that we could get some sleep. How would you like to go back to those days? While it is great to be nostalgic about the past, I cannot imagine going without the innovations we have today. Change from innovation is inevitable. Today we take pride and comfort in our modern world and seldom think twice about it, as I'm sure we seldom did in those old days. Hindsight is 20/20. Could we have predicted the radical changes that occurred over the last 50 years? Think about it. We put a man on the moon, invented the personal computer, launched the internet, introduced mobile phones, not to mention the millions of apps and tools we now have access to. From my personal experience, I give thanks to the innovations that led to central air conditioning becoming a scalable and accessible product for millions around the world. Given our ability to gain perspective of the past, could we predict the innovations that will impact our lives in 20 years? Even 10 years from now, we will look back to today and smile and shake our heads at how primitive we were in so many ways. Our cars of today will look primitive in 10 years, not to mention our clothes. In 10 years, what will you be doing? Where will you be living? What job will you have? And what will be your income? Where will you vacation? What are your plans for the next 10 years? What are your goals? In order for a goal to be effective, it must affect change. What can you learn during the next 10 years that will change the future? The most effective way to cope with change is to help create it. The only thing you can know for sure is that everything will change. Can you predict and anticipate some of this change and by doing so, be years ahead of others? If you don't and others can, you will find yourself at a clear disadvantage by having change surprise you. My grandfather used to tell me a story of 2 neighbors, Bill and Ted. Bill always brought his dog that loved cats. Ted had a cat that hated dogs. Whenever Bill came to visit Ted, his dog would come along. The dog would chase the cat up the maple tree in Ted's yard. This same scene would take place every time Bill came to visit. After a couple years, Ted cut down the tree. couple days later, Bill and his dog came to the visit. Out around the house ran the cat with the dog right on its tail. Suddenly, about 30 feet in the air, the cat realized that something had changed. Don't be the cat. Today we smile thinking about the past, and in the future we'll be smiling back as we think about today. Reminds me of a sign I saw on a roadside gas station. If you continue as you have in the past, where will you be 5 years from now? Something to think about. I'm Phil McKinney, and thanks for listening. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join in. If you have any comments or suggestions, drop me a note at phil@killerinnovations.com. Beyond this show, I write about my personal experiences of being in the innovation game for the last 2 decades. Topics include innovation, creativity, culture, team building, metrics, frustrations, leadership, and how to win. You can find that content over at philmckinney.com. You can also find out information about my book, Beyond the Obvious, including extensive excerpts over at beyondtheobvious.com. You can find hardcover, digital, and audio versions of my book on Amazon or wherever you get your books from. Now, the reason I started this show back in 2005 was to pay back my early mentor. My first mentor, Bob Davis, invested an immense amount of time in training and coaching me, which had a major impact on my career. When I went back and asked him how I could pay him back, he laughed and said I couldn't. I had to pay it forward. If I could ask for a favor, could you help me pay it forward? How? 1, by giving us a rating wherever you get your podcast, as that helps spread the word. And 2, by telling others about the show. If you want to be part of the conversation between the shows, I hang out in the Innovators community on Slack. The Innovators community is a private community of vetted innovators who help each other succeed. Check it out at theinnovators.community. This episode of Killer Innovations was produced by the Innovators Network. You can find the show notes and the entire show catalog going back to 2005 at killerinnovations.com. I'll talk to you next week, and in the meantime, go out and change the world with your killer innovation. Bye-bye.